So this is where I've got the stone to sit at the moment before I cut the seating. You can see it's just on the very edge of the hole. I'm going to show you the cutting of the seat with two different size burrs, just in case you haven't got the one that I've got. So this one is a 2.5mm heart burr, and when I put it directly into the hole, it's not too far off the depth of the seating that I want to create, which is, the rule of thumb I use is, it's the distance between the girdle and the table of the stone. That is the depth that I'm trying to get to, so when it's finished the table will be pretty much in line with the surface of the metal, maybe a fraction higher. So you can just see the start of the cutting there, and this is something you have to practice a lot to get the right feel for it. It's very hard to give precise measurements and instructions on doing this kind of thing. It is a case of get in there, have a go. You can see I'm whirling the burr around now that I started the initial seating, and the width of the cut I'm trying to achieve now is the width of the stone, maybe a fraction over. So I'm going to try that now. Now I'm using a 1.5mm round burr now, just to open the lip of the setting a little bit. You might prefer to clamp the ring in a bench vise or a ring clamp. I still prefer the flexibility of working without at this moment, just whilst I do the fitting. So we'll just try that. So you can see how close it is to being pushed in. So I could have a go at pushing that in now, and I use a brass pusher because it's soft enough that it doesn't damage the stone, or a stone like a CZ it won't. If you're working with a softer stone or brittle stones like peridot or amethyst, then I would be very careful. I'd be using a wooden pusher or a plastic pusher, and generally avoid the pushing, which is just a very gentle fitting. With CZs they're hard enough to take the push, as are diamonds. You can push away pretty much unless they're square. So that's now pushed in, and we heard that audibly sit into its position, so I know that that's not going to fall out whilst I'm working on the next one. The method that I also use is to do the seating and bypass the removing the lip of the setting, but with the hard stones especially, I then tuck it in and push down, and you do get that click then, but that comes in time to be able to do that efficiently. And the other negative thing about doing it that way, and the reason why I prefer teaching this way, is that if you cut too much of the seating and click it in and clicks in, there could be sideways movements because it could be opened up too much, and you know, this can be countered by pushing the beads over, but it's best to avoid any spaces inside the setting. So I'm going to now use a slightly smaller burr. This one's a 2mm burr. Now this is in case you've not got the right size. The good thing about heart burrs and doing it this way, you can use any size downward from, you know, your 2.6 downward. It's just a matter of rotating the burr once you've got the seat in depth, and it's harder getting that depth, but once you get some experience you kind of learn by eye where the seat should go. So I've just started it there. You can just see the line moving around, and you've got to keep that line straight. to run parallel with the top surface of the setting. It's very easy to sort of lose that line, and then you end up when you meet up with where you started, it could be higher or lower. There again, that does come with experience. And in my setting course, I do start the course at claw setting, and there is a very efficient way of marking out the inside of the claws so that you get the depth right and the cut right. So if setting is new to you, then I recommend you start with the claw setting in the 10-stage setting program. So you could see I was whirling around. There's a lot more movement inside the setting. It's a lot more physical doing it this way, and I'm kind of guessing the width of the cut there. Something you also need to look at: if you use a smaller burr, it might create a point here. There might be an area just under the cuts that needs to be removed, otherwise the pavilion of the stone catches on that. They're going to go into more detail in my setting program about that issue and how to remove it, but this one, because we used a comb burr and we pretty much got the right profile in there, we don't need to do much adjustment under the seating there. So now I'm going to change to the round burr again. If you find I'm making it look very easy and then you're trying this and it's just not working, just remember I've been doing this for, gosh, nearly 35-40 years now. I'm a self-taught setter, as most setters are, because there's no real setting schools around, and my qualification is actually a diamond mounter, which means my certificate, the course I did was about making the mounts for diamonds, not necessarily setting them. And the course was the City and Guilds of London Institute. Sounds very regal, and not sure if they're running that anymore. I know there's something similar that they're doing in England. But it was a full-time trade course, which I think is a great way of learning the skills. Sadly, the apprenticeship system isn't working out too well at the moment. It's too costly for employers to take on apprentices, and costly in time and in money, so hopefully our skills survive. And maybe it's time for an adjustment of how we do things, and hopefully I've got some answers in the program I'm trying to get off the ground, so we'll see where that goes. So we're just going to push that in. And that's pressure fit, so we didn't get the click, but we definitely got the pressure of it, and it should stay in there whilst I'm working on the next one. Now I just want you to just check out the heights I've got there. You can just see the table just slightly above the top of the setting. You can sink it a little bit lower, but I find it does look a little bit lost if they do go lower than that. So I'll go back to the 2.5mm. And I'm going to give you a chance to have a look at the inside of the setting now before I hit the stone. So hopefully you can see the line where the seat is, where the girdle is going to seat into. So again, that clicked in quite nicely. There's a little bit of movement there, which obviously will go once we start setting the stone. But again, the height, we want to keep checking that the height is the same on each one. If not, it has to be pushed out and then just change the level of the seating. And also we need to check that it is level, like if the seating's just slightly cut out of line, then the stone might be just off angle. That one looks as though it's just a fraction off angle. You can probably just see that. So I'm going to remove that and just lower the seating on this side. So I'm not cutting into the setting that way. I'm actually just pushing the bird down a fraction. So as you can see, that's now level, and I'm going to continue setting or seating the rest of them, and then we'll move on to the next step. So now the ring's ready for setting. The stones are in place, they're quite firmly sitting in there. If you had problems and they were popping out as you were working from one stone to the next, you can just apply a little bit of Vaseline inside the setting, pop the stone in. That'll stop it shaking out of its seat. The problem you're going to have if it's loose in its setting is it's going to be very hard to set the stone using the method we're going to use now, which is we're going to push the metal over, burnish the metal over. So it's a Gypsy setting. First of all, if you have a set of beaders, then I suggest that you donate one of your beaders to this task, and the reason being is we can quite easily turn a beading tool into a burnishing tool. So this is a polished beader, that's simply all it is. So I'm using a benchmate for this task. It allows me to use both hands, and if you haven't got a benchmate, then you're going to have to use a ring clamp, and still you can get that connection. I'll show you shortly. So the pressure is just on the lip there, just on the stone. We're not making contact with the stone, although this can't be helped. You try and avoid it as much as possible, but the pressure is on the metal going downwards, so the angle of the beading tool is quite flat. And I'm rubbing, applying the pressure on the metal. It is contacting the stone, but it's not where the pressure is. And I'm turning over to the other side and doing the same on the other side. And at this point I can just check to make sure that the stone is level in its setting. That looks fine, and then I'll move on to the other two. Now if you've pressure fit your stone really nice and tightly, then it's pretty much set. It isn't going to come out. But if it's quite loose in its seating, you're going to have to apply more pressure, downward pressure. And then lift the beader up, and the pressure is outward, so I'm pushing in this direction, not directly down, because that would add too much pressure onto the stone. The CZ will take it, but softer stones will break. The clicking you can hear is where it's going from one of the cuts to the other, and if I go in a complete circle you'll hear it clicking as it goes around. So that one's set. This time I'm using a ring clamp. There again my hands are connecting. If you look on my website and just check the skill rating of the various setting lessons, this as it is, I would rate this at a skill level of 4, but with if I was going to add the cut work, the bright cutting, I would have to lift it to around about 5. So with that information you should maybe look at the other projects and see how they're skill rated, and just before you do invest in taking up the course, just see where you think your skills lie in the program, because the last thing I want to do is encourage people to sign up for something that is not going to be achievable. It's all about taking those steps to get there. So even with doing something like this, if you can take it up to the level of just before the stone setting and work on your accuracy, marking the drilling, it all helps. And for some people it just might not be what floats your boat. You might not be into the commercial side of things. It's just, I think it's a great asset to have if you are creative and you make exhibition pieces and show pieces, then to dress your pieces with skills as well. This is something I do. I enter competitions and I'm quite a creative jeweller, but I always make sure I've got plenty of skills on display as well. And I always set my own work, which I think is really important, to take it from the very start to the very finish yourself. Now this stone here is moving quite a bit, so I need to apply a maximum pressure on this one. So that downward pressure that I'm applying is pushing the metal over the crown of the stone, and when it's moving around like this, it's at this stage here where I lift the burnisher up and the lip that I've created is then pushed onto the stone. So it's quite a lot of pressure I'm applying, but that's now quite firm. Okay, that's now firmly set.